I used to think I was falling into depression, not the kind that keeps you curled up in bed all day, but something quieter, slower, like a thin fog that wrapped itself around my thoughts. Every morning I'd wake up feeling like I hadn't slept at all. I ate well, exercised, meditated, read books, and yet there was still this heaviness I couldn't shake. My work began to fall apart. Projects I had handled with ease were suddenly riddled with strange setbacks. Emails disappeared, meetings were canceled last minute, and opportunities that seemed like sure things evaporated without explanation. I tried to blame myself. Maybe I'm not focused enough. Maybe I'm just burned out. But the more I tried to fix it, the worse it became. My friendships started unraveling. One close friend suddenly stopped talking to me. Another became distant, suspicious for reasons I couldn't understand. I started asking myself, am I the problem? Or is something else working against me? Something I can't see. I didn't dare say it out loud. It sounded crazy. Who believes in negative energy or spiritual attacks in this day and age? But one day, I realized something. This wasn't depression. It was an intrusion. And I wasn't the only one. What about you? Have you ever had a stretch of darkness so thick, so strange, that it felt like the universe was whispering against you? Things go wrong in ways you can't explain. You feel drained for no reason. Your relationships crumble without warning. Opportunities vanish at the last second. And deep down, somewhere inside, there's this quiet suspicion that something's off, but no one else seems to see it. If that sounds familiar, then stay with me, because you might be under attack. And if you don't recognize it soon, it won't stop. Black magic, or more accurately, energetic manipulation, isn't something you can see with the naked eye. It's not like a knife, a gun, or an open threat. It's subtler, colder, more like a toxic radio wave. You don't see it. You don't hear it, but it's there, transmitting frequencies that gradually throw your entire nervous system out of rhythm. At first, it just feels like fatigue. No reason, no diagnosis, nothing specific. Just tired. Like someone drained your life force while you slept. Things you once did with ease now feel impossibly heavy. You begin to procrastinate. You lose interest. You stop caring, not just about work, but about life itself. Then come the dreams. Not horror movie nightmares. Stranger than that. As if someone planted encrypted messages inside your mind. Symbols, blurred faces. That unsettling feeling of being watched, tested, followed. And when you wake, there's a haze you can't explain, like a thin film over your consciousness. You can't name what's wrong, but you know something is. Try telling someone. They'll laugh. They'll say you're stressed, that you need a break, that you're overthinking, so you stop talking about it. But deep down, you know something is interfering with you subtly, consistently, methodically. It doesn't shout. It doesn't strike directly. It waits. It waits until you're tired, until you start doubting yourself, until you begin drifting away from the stronger version of who you once were. And the moment you start believing, maybe I'm just weak, it wins. Do you see now? The most dangerous enemy is not the one who yells in your face. It's the one with no name, no face, who convinces you quietly, persistently, that you're breaking down, all on your own. This is how energy gets attacked. And if you don't recognize it soon enough, you'll keep treating the wrong symptoms. You'll keep taking medicine for an illness that doesn't live in your blood. And you'll keep failing to reclaim what was always yours, your mind, your will, your soul. But don't worry, because the moment you see it clearly is the moment you can start to fight back. I know you might still be skeptical, believing in invisible fatigue, strange dreams, or energetic manipulation sounds like superstition, like something humanity should have left behind with the Dark Ages. But the strange thing is, modern science is beginning to confirm what the ancients have known for thousands of years. In quantum physics, there's a phenomenon called the observer effect, the idea that the behavior of a quantum particle changes depending on whether or not it's being observed. Let that sink in. In other words, consciousness, the simple act of attention, alters outcomes. Max Planck, the father of quantum theory, once said, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness." And Albert Einstein often spoke of the universe as a field of interconnected energy, where everything affects everything else, whether you're aware of it or not. Sound familiar? Ancient civilizations from Egypt to China, India to Africa believed that thoughts, emotions, and intentions were not confined to the mind. They radiated outward, they shaped reality, and more importantly, they could be influenced. You don't have to call it black magic. You don't have to believe in spells or rituals. But you can't deny that energy is real and it moves, with or without your permission. So if your life feels like it's being dragged downward slowly, silently, don't just blame stress or hormones. Be honest with yourself and ask, is something interfering with my energy system? And if the answer is maybe, congratulations, you're waking up, because the greatest danger isn't the existence of dark energy. It's the arrogance that makes us blind to it, the intellectual pride that tells us we're too smart to believe in something we can't measure. The Stoics didn't speak of energy fields, but they understood deeply the connection between mind and reality. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's not just poetic wisdom, it's spiritual armor. Because if your mind is clear and disciplined, no external force, no matter how subtle or invisible, can destroy you. So remember this. Just because you can't measure something doesn't mean it isn't real. You can't see electricity, but it shocks you. You can't see radiation, but it burns you. You can't see dark energy, but it can still reach you. And now that you know this, the question is, will you ignore it or start to defend yourself? Sign number 1, the bone-deep fatigue you can't explain. Her name was Elise, a high-performing executive in the healthcare industry, late 30s, fit, sharp, always composed. She meditated every morning, took supplements like clockwork, and hadn't missed a workout in years. She was the kind of person others leaned on, the kind that kept everything together even when things fell apart around her. Until one day, she couldn't get out of bed, not from illness, not from burnout, not from a flu or virus or anything doctors could detect. It started subtly, a little more tired than usual. A few snooze buttons hit. But then came the heaviness, the kind of fatigue that feels like it's stitched into your bones. Her limbs felt like sandbags. Her thoughts slowed down, like trying to run through water. It didn't matter how early she went to sleep or how many vitamins she took, her energy was gone. She tried to push through. She always did. But this was different. Elise saw 3 doctors, had every test run, blood work, hormones, sleep studies. Scans all came back clean. "You're fine," they told her. But she knew she wasn't. Not even close. Something inside her had dimmed. And the worst part, she couldn't explain it, not even to herself. "I feel like I'm fading," she told me once. "Like, I'm here, but I'm not. Like something's draining me from the inside out." That's when we started talking about energetic attack. The possibility that what she was feeling wasn't just physical or psychological, but spiritual. That maybe, just maybe, something had attached itself to her, some weight she didn't pick up, but now had to carry. You see, there's a kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from the body or the mind, but from the soul. And no amount of sleep can fix it. This isn't the tired you get after a long day. It's not even burnout. This is targeted depletion. It shows up when you're on the rise, when your light shines a little too brightly, when your momentum threatens someone else's comfort. That's when certain energies, whether intentional or not, begin to claw at your vitality. And it always starts the same way. You begin to doubt yourself. You blame the grind, the schedule, the age, the weather. But deep down, you know something isn't right. Something's pressing down on you. something that doesn't belong to you. And this is where Stoic wisdom becomes not just relevant, but necessary. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your judgment about it. And it is in your power to wipe out that judgment now." The Stoics didn't believe in blaming the world. They believed in strengthening the self. They knew we couldn't control every wave, but we could become better swimmers, more resilient, more aware, more sovereign over our own minds. Elise didn't defeat her fatigue with another prescription. She didn't power through like she was used to. She changed her internal landscape. She stopped treating symptoms and started reclaiming her energy. She began cleansing her environment. She cut cords with draining people. She restructured her mornings, not for productivity, but for alignment. She learned to listen to herself, to her body, to the quiet signals around her. And slowly, the fog lifted. Here's single quotes that's the truth. When you're under energetic attack, you don't always see it, but you feel it. And the first sign is often this unexplainable fatigue that turns you into a shadow of yourself. Don't ignore it, because if your mind is unguarded, any darkness can take root. But if your mind is trained aware, calm, and clear, nothing can dominate you, not even the most invisible threat. Sign number 2: when your relationships fall apart for no reason. His name was Caleb. He was the kind of man who had it all lined up: a steady job in tech, a close circle of friends, and a woman he was ready to marry. He had already chosen the ring: simple, classic, elegant, just like her. The proposal was planned for a weekend getaway in the mountains, a place they both loved. But just 2 weeks before the trip, she left. No fight, no betrayal, just distance. She said something felt off, that she didn't feel connected anymore, that it wasn't him, she just needed space. Caleb, confused but respectful, gave her that space. She never came back. Then it started happening with others. His mother, once warm and deeply supportive, began speaking to him in clipped sentences, avoiding eye contact, acting as though he'd disappointed her somehow, but she wouldn't say why. When he asked, she shrugged it off. "I'm just tired." And then his best friend, his brother in arms, since college, stopped returning his messages. No argument, no falling out, just silence. Caleb told me, "It was like everyone I loved went cold, all at once, and I had no idea what I did wrong." But that was the thing. He didn't do anything. There was no betrayal, no misunderstanding, no triggering event. Just a slow, eerie shift, like something invisible had wedged itself between him and the people he cared about. And when we started unpacking it, something became very clear. It wasn't them, and it wasn't him. It was the space in between that had been tampered with. Because when you're under energetic attack, it's not just your body that gets hit, it's your bonds. We are relational beings. We survive, heal, and evolve through connection. And energetic interference, whether intentional or not, distorts those connections. It scrambles signals. You send love, it's received as pressure. You offer warmth, they feel invaded. You speak truth, it sounds like accusation. And slowly, people pull away, not because they stopped loving you, but because they no longer feel safe around you, even if they don't understand why. This is what makes spiritual attacks so insidious. They isolate you, not through violence, but through subtle erosion. Till the people who once knew your soul now look at you like a stranger. The Stoics warned us about chaos. They said the world outside would always shift, shake, and break. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. But what happens when your thoughts are no longer clear? When your relationships fracture for reasons you can't explain, when the emotional mirrors around you all begin to crack, that's when you must hold the line, not outwardly, but inwardly. The Stoics called it the fortress of the mind, a sacred place within that cannot be breached. No matter what collapses outside, Caleb found his way back by rebuilding from that place. He stopped chasing explanations. He stopped begging for closure. He turned inward. He began journaling, meditating, and reflecting not on what was lost but on what was left. And in time, something shifted. Not all the people returned, but the fog around him cleared, and the relationships that remained grew stronger, clearer, and more real than anything he'd had before. Because when you stand tall inside yourself, those who are meant to stay will find their way back, and those who were pulled away by dark winds were never anchored deeply enough to begin with. So if your relationships are unraveling, if people are turning cold, if you feel like you've been exiled from your own life, don't assume you're the problem. Assume your light has been targeted. And remember, even when every connection fails, your first and final relationship must be with your own mind. Guard it like a fortress, because that is where the healing begins. Sign number 3, when your finances collapse and opportunities disappear at the worst time. Jason had been working toward that promotion for 3 years. He arrived early, stayed late, volunteered for every project no one else wanted. He played the long game, built relationships, delivered results. And finally it was his turn. His manager hinted at it. HR booked a follow-up. The leadership team was already talking about how well he'd fit in the new role. He started to allow himself to believe it was happening, until, out of nowhere, it wasn't. The budget was suddenly on hold. The position was restructured. They might revisit it next quarter. You know the drill. Jason was stunned but tried to stay grounded. He told himself it wasn't personal, that these things happen, but then it happened again. A side business he'd been developing on the weekends, something with real traction, suddenly stalled. The supplier backed out. A licensing issue popped up. His web traffic tanked overnight due to a random algorithm shift. Every step forward was met with 2 steps back. Not because he was lazy, not because he made foolish decisions, because something unseen, something off kept cutting the wire just before the connection sparked. Jason said to me, "It's like my success gets sabotaged right before it locks in, every time. Like I'm stuck in this loop of almost." That's when we started talking about energy, about interference, about how not all failure is random and not all blockages are your fault. Because here's the thing, there's a specific kind of suffering that comes from repeated almosts, from lining up all the right pieces and watching them scatter at the finish line. It's not failure, it's erosion, and it wears down something deeper than your ambition. It attacks your belief that effort equals reward. That's the most dangerous part, because once that belief breaks, you stop trying. Not because you've given up, but because your soul doesn't believe in progress anymore. This isn't just misfortune, it's energetic interference, and it hits hardest when you're on the brink of rising, because that's when your light is brightest. That's when jealousy grows legs. That's when dark intent searches for cracks in your momentum. The Stoics never promised control over outcomes. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Marcus Aurelius, they didn't teach us to chase success. They taught us to master our responses, because that is where true power lies. Jason eventually stopped chasing what kept slipping. Instead, he went inward. He examined his attachment to results. He cleaned up the subtle energy leaks, people who smiled at him but secretly resented him. Habits that seemed small but drained his clarity. And he stopped apologizing for wanting more. He stopped hiding his light to stay humble. Within months, things shifted, not because he begged the world to change, but because he changed his internal frequency. So if your finances keep crashing, if your career feels cursed by if you're doing everything right but progress refuses to stick, ask yourself, what's pulling your energy behind the scenes? Because when opportunity consistently vanishes at the last second, you're not unlucky, you're being targeted, and your greatest defense isn't to push harder, it's to root deeper, to stop chasing noise and start building clarity. Because when your mind is stable, no darkness can unbalance your path. Sign number 4. Nightmares and mental invasions that aren't yours. Sophia wasn't someone prone to drama. She was a licensed psychotherapist, logical, compassionate, grounded. She'd spent over a decade helping others untangle their inner chaos. Trauma, grief, anxiety, she'd heard it all. So when the nightmares started, she assumed it was just stress, until they kept coming. Every night. More vivid, more intrusive, more foreign. She'd wake up at 3:13 a.m., heart pounding, drenched in sweat. Her mind haunted by things she couldn't explain. A dark hallway, shadowy figures watching her from corners she couldn't reach. Rooms she'd never seen but somehow recognized, and always a presence, silent, waiting. At first, she tried dream journaling, then supplements, then silence, before bed. Nothing worked, because it wasn't her subconscious replaying memories. It was something else trying to get in. Then came the thoughts, not the kind she was used to. The fleeting worries or self-doubt we all face. No, these were foreign, like static, interrupting a signal. Sudden flashes of dread, random spikes of hopelessness, even violent images that made her stop mid-task and whisper, "That's not me. Why did I just think that?" That's when Sophia began to realize what most people never even question. Not every thought in your mind originates from you. Just like a hacked phone receives strange messages, a compromised mind receives frequencies that don't belong. You see, dreams are not just stories. They are gates. When you sleep, your defenses lower. Your conscious mind steps aside. And that's when certain energies, those built with intention, begin to seep in. In spiritual terms, this is a mental breach. In energetic warfare, this is phase 4. Control the dream, distort the mind, corrupt the soul. Sound extreme? Maybe. But think back. Have you ever had dreams that didn't feel like yours? Have you ever woken up carrying emotions you couldn't explain? Have you ever heard your own mind whisper things you'd never consciously think? That's not imagination. That's intrusion. And the Stoics, while they never spoke of shadow figures or psychic attacks, knew the weight of such invasions. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. So, what happens when those thoughts aren't yours? What happens when your inner world, once sacred, becomes compromised? That's when your final line of defense must activate. Not the body, not the bank account, but the mind. Because if you lose sovereignty over your thoughts, everything else follows. Sophia reclaimed herself, not through medication or distraction, but through ritual and vigilance. She began purifying her sleep space, burning herbs, speaking intentions, guarding her dream gate like it was sacred, because it is. She stopped accepting every thought as her own. When dark impulses arose, she paused and asked, "Is this mine?" And slowly, the static faded. The dreams cleared. The peace returned. You must understand, in the battle for your spirit, your mind is the final battlefield. And that includes your dreams. Because when they invade you there, it's not just about fear. It's about influence. So if your nights have grown darker, if your thoughts betray you in ways you can't explain, don't dismiss it. Don't label it as stress. Observe it, question it, guard it. Because you don't have to control the storm, you just have to refuse to let it control you. Sign number 5. Symbols, sounds, and subtle environmental shifts. It started with a feather, black curved, lying on the welcome mat of Aaron's apartment. He brushed it off maybe. A crow had passed overhead. But the next morning it was there again. Same spot, same feather. Then came the smell, a strange metallic scent, like burnt wires and soil. It would drift in without warning. No source, no reason, and vanish just as quickly. Next was the air. He'd walk into a room in his own home and feel it, heavier, tighter, like the atmosphere had thickened. Some rooms felt completely foreign, like someone else had just been there. His dog began acting strangely, too, growling at empty corners, refusing to enter certain rooms. And one night, as Aaron lay half asleep, he glanced at the digital clock on his nightstand. 3:33 a.m., frozen, not blinking, not changing. It stayed that way until morning. He told himself it was stress or faulty wiring, but something deeper in him, something primal, was already sounding the alarm. Because these weren't the coincidences, they were disturbances, patterns, repeating, persisting, whispering, something is wrong. Many people experience these signs: the flickering lights, the sudden chills, the repeated numbers, the feeling of being watched when no one's around, and yet most dismiss them. We've been conditioned to ignore our instincts, to label our own intuition as paranoia. But what if it's not? What if these moments are your energy field speaking to you in the only language it can? Not through words, but through shifts. Not through logic, but through sensation. Because when you're under spiritual attack, your environment often reacts before you do. The space around you becomes distorted. Animals sense it. Objects shift. Clocks freeze. Shadows seem to deepen, and all of it is trying to say, pay attention. The Stoics were not mystics. They didn't believe in omens or supernatural signs, but they did believe in pattern. The wise man sees in advance the shape of things. Stoic paraphrase Marcus Aurelius warned us not to be deceived by appearances, but also not to sleepwalk through life, because the world, yes, even the unseen parts of it, leaves trails. The Stoic doesn't jump to conclusions, but he also doesn't ignore the clues. Aaron eventually stopped brushing it all off. He began cleansing his space physically and energetically. He stopped gaslighting himself into thinking it's just stress. And the more he honored what he sensed, the more grounded he became. The signs stopped, not because the darkness vanished, but because it lost its grip on his awareness. You can't manipulate someone who's no longer asleep. So if you've been noticing strange patterns, unfamiliar noises, repeating numbers, odd behavior from animals, rooms that feel haunted not by ghosts, but by disruption, listen. Even if no one else sees it, even if logic says you're imagining it, your intuition doesn't lie. And in a world that's constantly telling you to ignore your gut, listening becomes a revolutionary act. By now, maybe something inside you has started to shift. You've seen the fatigue that drains your life force. You've watched your relationships fracture with no explanation. You've experienced success dissolve the moment it was within reach. Your dreams have become battlegrounds, and your environment whispers things you can't quite name, but you can feel them individually. Each sign might be explained away: stress, coincidence, bad timing. But together, they form a pattern. This is not random. This is a system, a structured assault, executed through subtle means, on every level of your being. It starts with your energy, weakens your drive, then it severs your emotional connections, undermines your success, infiltrates your mind, and finally distorts your very reality. By the time most people realize something's wrong, they're already isolated, disconnected, exhausted, too uncertain of themselves to fight back. And that's the goal, because the real damage of these attacks isn't just the external chaos. It's what happens inside, when you begin to doubt your worth, when you stop trusting your intuition, when you surrender control of your inner world to something you can't even see. That is the theft, not of your job, not of your relationships, but of your sovereignty. And if you ignore it, if you dismiss these signs, laugh them off, or convince yourself that everything is just a phase, you risk paying a price far greater than inconvenience. You risk your clarity. You risk your freedom. You risk your soul. Because this kind of attack doesn't need your belief to work. It only needs your ignorance. And in a world that teaches you to value intellect over instinct, to numb discomfort instead of investigate it, you're taught to ignore the very alarms that were built to protect you. But awareness changes everything, because once you see the pattern, you are no longer under its spell. Once you name it, it loses power. And once you decide you will no longer be passive in your own mind, your healing begins. So now, the question is no longer is something wrong. It's, what will I do about it? In the next section, we'll begin that journey step by step, not with superstition, but with precision, not with fear, but with the discipline of a warrior reclaiming sacred ground. Your mind, your energy, your life, they are yours to protect. By now, you've likely realized what's been happening in your life isn't random. It has shape, rhythm, intention. And you also know this. You can't keep living the same way, reacting the same way, and expect everything to simply disappear. You must reclaim your energy not through panic, but through ritual, not through fear, but through conscious awareness. Asterisk 1. Cleansing your space, turning your home into a stronghold. The space you live in isn't just where you sleep or eat. It holds energy. And if that energy is cluttered by past emotions, other people's presence, or invisible residual, constantly feel off without knowing why. Start with salt. Use pure sea salt. Dissolve it in warm water. Wipe down your floors, your doorknobs, your windowsills, every surface that connects you to the outside. And while you clean, set a clear intention. I reclaim the energy of this space. I am its guardian. Then, use sound, a singing bowl, wind chimes, bells, your own voice. Walk through the space and let each sound ripple outward. With each ring, remind the energy in the room. Light is present here. Light itself matters. Open the windows, let sunlight pour in. Use warm-toned lamps. Light a pure candle with reverence. Light doesn't just illuminate physically, it slices through spiritual debris like a laser through dust. Lastly, choose a personal object, a stone, a photo, a sacred token, something that anchors you. Place it with care. This becomes your energetic, centered the spot you'll return to when you need grounding. Asterisk 2. Cleansing your mind, cutting the invisible cords. You're not just exhausted from work. You're tired from the emotional cords you didn't realize you were carrying. Every lingering resentment, unresolved conversation, memories soaked in guilt or anger, each becomes a thread. Small, silent, but constantly draining you. Each night, before bed, perform a simple cord-cutting ritual. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply. Visualize each person, each emotion, each event that feels heavy appearing like a cord attached to your body. Now imagine cutting them one by one, with a blade of light, with a firm breath, with your will. And whisper to yourself, I release what does not belong to me. I call back only what is pure and mine. It may sound small, but that's how freedom begins in quiet. Consistent choices. Asterisk 3. Reconnecting to the Stoic mind, returning to your inner stronghold. Stoicism doesn't require you to believe in spirits or energy. It only asks you to master your mind. Because when the mind is stable, even the darkest forces cannot shake you. Your soul becomes dyed with the color of your thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. What thoughts are you coloring your soul with? Are you still living in someone else's narrative? Are you allowing external noise to define your internal state? Are you reacting or choosing? Start journaling. Every morning, just 5 minutes. Ask, what's in my mind today? Every night, which thoughts didn't belong to me? The more aware you become, the more you regain control. And that is what darkness fears most, a mind lit from within. In conclusion, every small act is a step back to yourself. You don't need grand rituals. You don't need to sage your house daily. You simply need to live with clarity. Every breath you take with intention is a light returning to your spirit. Every boundary you set is a wall guarding your energy. Every thought you examine is a thread untangling your freedom. You don't need to become someone else. You only need to return to who you were before the world tried to dull your light. So, right now, pause, take a conscious breath, and know that with it, you've just taken your first step back toward your fortress. Your energy is sacred, your clarity is non-negotiable, and your mind is yours to protect. If you've made it this far, there's something I need you to know. You're not crazy, you're not too sensitive, and no, you're not imagining things. You are waking up. In a world where most people choose to sleep through the signals, you're the one who stopped, who listened, who began to question. That isn't weakness, that's courage. And in today's world, awakening is a radical act. You've seen the signs. You've begun defending your energy, and you now understand your inner light must be guarded, not with fear, but with will, discipline, and spiritual sovereignty. But this is only the beginning. This journey doesn't end in one video, and you shouldn't walk it alone. That's why I'm asking you subscribe right now, not to follow a channel, but so that each future video becomes another shield in your spiritual armor. Together, we'll keep building, technique by technique, lesson by lesson, step by conscious step, and you right now have just laid the first stone in the fortress of your soul. Protect it, strengthen it, expand it, because no matter how much darkness surrounds you, one clear mind is enough not to be consumed. I'll see you in the next video, where we raise walls, open gates, and clear the remaining shadows. Stay strong, stay awake. You're not alone.